Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. I'm Frater Eleftheria and I'm continuing my video series on the court cards in the tarot. In my previous video on this topic, I discussed the suit of wands and the king, queen, knight and page of wands in that suit. Now we're moving on to the suit of cups and discussing the meanings of the court cards in that suit. The suit of cups is a very watery suit. The cup represents the water element, and so as with all the court cards, we have subdivisions of the water element into the fiery, watery, earthy and airy part of water. Each of those subdivisions represented by one of the court cards. I'll begin again from the bottom with the Page of Cups. This is the earthy part of water, as the pages represent the element of earth. And as with the Page of Wands that we saw, the energy of this page card is very youthful, very enthusiastic. This particular page is kind of like the idealist, and it's about discovering things in the emotional world, in terms of our inner emotional world, in terms of our own inner unconscious as well. So it's very related to intuition and also very related to creativity and discovering in those domains. And so it can represent the unknown emerging from the unconscious as the fish emerges from the cup, and it's quite a surprise for the page. And the emergence of the fish from the cup reminds us of a kind of awakening of sorts. In this case, it's an emotional awakening or an intuitive awakening, suddenly becoming sensitive to our feelings and where that's guiding us. So the Page of Cups is about curiosity, it's about exploring our feelings, and this can manifest in the way that we relate to other people, the relationships that we have or can form in our lives. But this is just the beginning of opening up to those new feelings that we feel and those new connections that we feel. So it can represent a new love interest if you draw this card, or it can represent the beginning of a creative project, particularly those related to music or art or writing or some endeavour that evokes emotions that are very strong. These are all possible meanings of the card. But as I've said before, the court cards usually represent a person. In this case, a person embodying the qualities that I've already described, that emotional openness, that kind of creativity, all of that sort of thing, perhaps a bit intuitive, but someone who, by the same token, has a certain innocence about them, perhaps is not tainted by the world and has a kind of almost naivete about the way they go through life. Think of the person who wears their heart on their sleeve. But this could also represent you, of course, as with all of the court cards, and it's an invitation to be open to your feelings and to kind of allow yourself to be surprised and experience the kind of innocent wonder of discovering something new about yourself for the first time and feeling something new. And that's pretty much the meaning of the Page of Cups. So next up we have the Knight of Cups, representing the airy part of water. We again see strong watery symbolism with the river running. We see strong fish symbolism, and there is the iconic cup of this suit. And this particular knight reminds one of the Grail knights, perhaps Percival or Lancelot, or one of the knights going on a quest to retrieve the Holy Grail. And there's a lot of kind of Grail type symbolism in this deck, in these court cards, unsurprisingly. So just as in the suit of wands, we saw that the knight was kind of like the development of the initial idea in the page card of that suit and bringing that into action to some extent. Again, we see the same thing here. That initial kind of feeling of curiosity, of emotional curiosity, represented by the Page of Cups, is now turned into a goal that is pursued by the Knight of Cups. But although, you know, the Knight of Wands was a very active card and was sort of a figure racing into action, that the Knight of Cups is a much slower and more tempered kind of a card. And it really, you know, represents somebody who is a dreamer, pursuing a goal, but it's an emotionally driven goal, like a dream or a fantasy. The way that the Holy Grail and acquiring that is like the archetypal sort of fantasy or dream of a romantic kind of a nature that people might follow. So connections to the Grail Knight has other connotations that we can possibly draw, such as the idea of chivalry, the idea of romantic love and romantic courtship. Someone who is a romantic at heart, much like the troubadours who travelled through Europe and carried the Grail legend with them, and promoted this idea of chivalry and the chivalrous knight who expressed a pure love. And it's a very idealistic kind of love. And so we have the idealist, the dreamer, the lover, all represented by this card. Somebody who's driven by the heart. And not only listening to their heart, as indeed I think the Page of Cups does, but going where those emotions lead, taking action on those feelings. So this can be pursuing a romantic interest, it can be pursuing a creative interest, for example. However, as an idealist, the Knight of Cups can also be seen as unrealistic in their pursuits. They might become swept away in emotion and not consider the practicalities of life. So there is a need to sort of balance the ideal with the practical for the person represented by this card, if indeed it does represent a person. But this is a symbol of a person who is on an emotional journey, exploring that new emotional impulse that the page felt. A new relationship, a new creative project, even a new spiritual quest, such as the quest of the Holy Grail. This card invites us to dream, to dare to dream and to pursue that dream, but perhaps just remember to be grounded in the process. Next up we have the Queen of Cups. As the Queens are water, this is a pure water card, the watery part of water, as they say. This is emotion coupled with rulership and power. So this is really somebody who embodies emotional maturity. And it also, the Queen of Cups represents deep intuition. And, you know, that is why, those two reasons, that the Queen of Cups sits or by the water, but it is a calm water that gently laps the shore. It's not a turbulent kind of an ocean. So this is somebody who represents that emotional calm and that emotional control. Somebody who is emotional, but is very much the master of that emotion. Unlike the other cups that appear in the other court cards, the cup that the Queen is holding has a lid on top of it. She can keep a lid on her emotions. And it's a deeply emotionally mature card, like I said, deeply in touch with her intuition, very calm sort of a figure in the Queen of Cups, and somebody who is very much in touch with the divine through that intuition. We see hints of like the Ark of the Covenant and how that might have appeared, or the tabernacle in a church in the way that the cup appears. And this symbolism is actually very important in terms of the message or the secret that it reveals. So I want to dwell on that a bit further. So if you think about the Ark of the Covenant, as well as the tabernacle in a Catholic church, both of which are sort of being depicted here in some way, then what is unique about those symbols is that they represent the presence of God and suddenly finding oneself in the presence of God. Now, it's true that God is everywhere, but that's kind of a transcendent way of God being with us, whereas when we have an imminent encounter with the divine and we really feel like we are in the immediate presence of divinity in a physical, palpable way, that is the experience of being before the tabernacle or being before the ark. And so what this symbol is telling us is that the secret to coming before the presence of God in that profound way, of seeing God, of feeling God, is through love and compassion, and through the heart, the gateway of the heart. The suit of cups in the playing cards is represented by the hearts. The Queen of Cups is the Queen of Hearts. And so she is inviting us to enter God's presence through the heart and getting in touch with the heart. And that is really related to the quest for the Holy Grail as well. Some people have interpreted this ornate cup as the Holy Grail. And of course, in the legend of the Holy Grail, the Grail could only be found by one who is pure of heart. So this Queen of Cups is someone who knows how to create emotional harmony, both within her own being and among other people. So she can be a very good source of emotional support for other people and understanding for other people. She's a good listener. She's got an open heart, very caring, very good guide for those reasons, and because she is in touch with her intuition, and this also makes her good at reading other people. So if you draw this card and it represents you, you're being invited to trust your intuition and also nurture your own inner emotional well-being, but perhaps also to nurture the well-being of others by practicing compassion. The alternative, of course, if this card represents another person, is that this person is bringing those things into your life. Someone who is a motherly figure, who embodies that compassion, that intuition, that emotional intelligence. And finally, the Queen of Cups can be a reminder to us to remain in control of our emotions, to remain emotionally balanced. The final court card in the suit of cups is, of course, the King of Cups. As a king, he is the fiery part of water. And so, as one of the regal cards, the King of Cups is also a master of emotional intelligence and emotional maturity and control over one's emotions. And there's a degree of creativity and being in touch with the unconscious as well in this card, as with the Queen in this suit. But unlike the Queen, which is a bit of a softer card, there's calmer, gentler waters that are surrounding the Queen. With the King, we have very turbulent waters. We can see a sea monster in the back, or perhaps the whale of Jonah. We see a ship being rocked to and fro on the waves. But in the center, the king sits on his throne as the calm center, almost like the eye in the storm. And so the kind of emotional maturity and control that the king represents is being able to navigate turbulent emotional waters with authority and calm and in a resolute way. Somebody who can be a steady pair of hands and a steady head in a crisis situation. So although the King of Cups is an emotional card, we see here someone who is in touch with their emotions, but also balances that, on the other hand, with discernment and understanding. And so we see the staff of the ruler who discerns and judges in the other hand, whereas in one hand the king also holds the cup. So both symbols appear together. Another interpretation of the King of Cups is that this is the benevolent ruler who has great authority and power, someone who is in a position of authority, but leads from the heart rather than the head. A person who is wise, but also compassionate, powerful, but also very supportive to those who are under his care. And of course, this can represent a person in your life or be encouraging you to embody those qualities yourself. The King of Cups is also a sign of healing, both on a personal and interpersonal level. So this can be a counselor, a healer, but in particular the type of healer that helps us work through our emotions. And the symbol of the healer is very interesting here because we might regard the King of Cups, in my opinion, as representing the Fisher Kings of Grail lore, and they were associated with healing as well, as the kind of therapeutic qualities of the Grail were theirs to wield. And, when the Grail King himself is healed, the whole land is healed. So the Fisher Kings are very much connected to healing and the idea of healing, as indeed is the King of Cups. So perhaps the kind of leader that is represented by the King of Cups is someone you'll encounter in life, or perhaps you're being invited to step into this role yourself. And that is all of the court cards in the suit of cups and their meanings. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to this channel to support my work, and if you want to support me further, hit join or thanks down below. But thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.